Hello, everyone, and good afternoon, or at least good afternoon in Sweden. Welcome to this webinar. We're going to talk about elevation editing with Naviate Landscape. And I have my colleague Martin here with me today, who's going to do all the presentations. So I'm just here to make sure everyone is alive and welcomed. So with that, I will hand over to you, Martin.
Thank you so much. And I will start by sharing my screen here. So today we will talk about the slope arrows functionality. We will look into some different features there. I will start with this tool that is called Create Points, a very useful tools that you can combine with slope arrows. And we will also look into extrude along line and this function. Before it was called 3D measure, and now we call it um, objects along line instead. And we'll also have a short introduction to plant data. So in my model here, I got some different stuff. So I got this existing ground, finished ground, and rock surface. And to see those, I can use this function, objects on off, also a very good function to combine with slope arrows. So I got this existing ground. I can turn it on, turn it off, and I got to start on my finished ground. And here I have some points and some slope arrows that I've created before. So I have built a bit of this surface already, but we will do some edits on this surface. So I will turn this panel off and then start with this tool, Create Points. So when I start this tool, I get this dialog box up. And here I have my point codes. So now I have created finished ground and existing ground. And if you want to create any new point names or point groups, you can just type it in here. And if you type it in, like I can just type ground, then I get the option to create a point group, and it will store the point code. And then you can just use this drop down to toggle between the point groups. So first I will create some points called finished ground. And here I can choose if I want to create single points, if I want to create on a surface or on a line, or if I want to interpolate between 2 points, or if I want to create them from block. We also got the function that starts the slope arrows functionality from here. But if I just create on surface, I get this new dialog up where I am supposed to select a surface. So if I want to get the height from existing ground, I can just pick that one and choose OK here. And then I can just start to create my points. So I put out some points here, press escape, and when I press escape or enter, they will land in this finished ground point group and get the styles from there. So since this is the existing ground, I want to change the point code for them. So I use this existing ground group instead. And then I should use this function, apply code to points. And then I can pick points that I want to change group for. So now I just pick those, hit enter, and then I will change the point group to existing ground instead. And if I just want to create new points, I can use this single, existing, or whatever point code or point group I want to use, and I can just put out the points wherever I want to. And then I specify a height or elevation for this point to create new points. So now I'll use this function to create some points from my blocks I got over here. And sometimes when you get a drawing in from AutoCAD, maybe you got some blocks that you want to start with. So I will use this function from block. And then I can also choose if I want to use blocks of the same block name. It will pick all. And you can also choose if you want to delete the blocks that you have used after you have used them to create the Koga points. So I'll just pick those other blocks here. They got different names. That's why they didn't all got converted. So, and then I got cargo points created here instead of blocks. And we have done all my point creation. I can close this tool, and now we will look into slope arrows functionality instead. Slope arrows, we can do or create single slope arrows. We can do continuous or interpolate. So we'll start off with the single. So I hit that function. And then I get some different opportunities here in the command line. But first of all, I will look into the settings for the slope arrows. And in this dialog box, I can choose text size for my block. This is a dynamic block that will be created when I start a function, just to see what elevation my new point will get and what distance and so on. So this one just create a height for that one. I can also choose what slope label style I want to use, curve label style if I use arcs, slope line style, this is the style of the feature line, and also what point code I want to use. And here I got the same existing ground, finished ground, and say endpoint. Actually, now I will use this finished ground. I can also choose if I want to add the lines to a surface. And that it means that it will add all the lines as break lines to my surface. And in this case, I want to do that. So I tick this box, and then I pick my surface that's called finished ground. And that's the surface that we see in the background there with the triangles. I can also choose if I want to update slope arrows when I drag a point. I will show you how that works. And if I want to block elevation change, if I snap to a point that is got an elevation. If I want to block that, I can check this box. And if I want to have the elevation from that point, I leave this box unchecked. And here we can also choose if you want to auto-delete feature lines with labels or auto-delete feature lines with point. It means that if I delete a point, it also delete the feature lines that is created. Same with the label. If I delete a label, it will delete the line. So that's an option that I can choose if I want to do or not. So let's see how it works. So I hit OK here. And now you can see I get the options again in the command line. And now I have a select start object. And then now I can pick a point that I will start from. So if I just want to create a new point, I can pick a point here instead. And then I can just choose a random place where to create a point. And when I pick the place for the point, I got the option if I want to specify the elevation or if I want to get the elevation from the surface. So if I hit surface here, it will get the elevation from surface. If not, I can specify my height. But if I want to use the surface, I just click surface. Then I choose what surface, and in this case, finish ground, and it's OK. And then I choose next point. Now I can connect this point to any other point here, but now I just want to create a point, so I pick point again. And here you can see the dynamic block that is created. In these settings, we was able to choose text size for this block. And here you can see I got elevation, I got slope, and I get distance. So if I move this block, I can see the elevation change and the distance change. So now I got options to change the slope here. So I hit slope. And when I use this command, I can either choose if I want to change the slope or if I want the endpoint elevation for this point. But I want to change the slope, so I put in -2 to get a -2% slope. And I can see the slope is changed here as well. And then I can just pick wherever I want to place this point. We also got the option here that's called distance. And if I use this, I can lock the distance. So if I want it to be locked at 10 meters, I just type 10, hit enter, and then it will lock in 10 meters. And then I can just place my points wherever I want them. to create points. 10 meters with a slope -2%. Okay, press escape there, and I can see my model, terrain model updated as well when I finish the command. So now we got some new points here, and if I drag or pick any of these points and use the grip to drag it, I can see how the distance and slope change for this point, or all these points, because they are connected to each other. If I want to change the height on any point, I can just double click, and it will start this tool, edit elevation by scroll wheel. And now I got some different opportunities. If I don't do anything, it will just edit the elevation with scroll wheel. So I can use the scroll to edit up and down. I can choose if I want to set the increment value to something else. It's 1 centimeter as default, but I can set it to millimeter or decimeter if I want to. But as default, it's 1 centimeter. I can also choose if I want to set the elevation for this point. If I know what elevation I want this point on, I can use set elevation and specify what elevation I want. Or I can select a new point to pick another point. And I can also select surface. And when I finish this, I just hit enter. And I can also double tap on line to get this slope function instead. So I can use slope or grade to change it. And it's just a quick elevation editor tool that it accesses. So if there are points to this point, it means that this elevation will stay. And if I have it over the half line, this elevation will change instead. So it's just a quick elevation tool from Civil. And I can move around all the lines. I can also pick the label, just double tap that one. Only thing that is different here is that I get this site message, so I need to hit OK here, and then I get the same tool. So if it's hard to see the line, you can always pick the label instead to get this tool up. And if we go back to the settings here, these two settings, auto delete feature line with label, it means if I delete this label, it also delete the line if this box is checked. And same with the points. If I delete this point, the feature line will be deleted. So now I can just pick this label and delete it, and the line will be deleted as well. Or the points. It will be delete the line. Apparently not. So let's try this one instead. Not really sure why that doesn't work. How to delete? Yeah, should be working with that command before at least. So try it and contact us if it doesn't work. Okay, let's see here. I see the dynamics have stopped work there. So I'll just restart my Civil and see if it will be back on track. Sometimes it does that.
The downside of having a lot of dynamic ability in our functionalities is that sometimes they stop working. So
yeah, but I have played around a lot with this drawing before this webinar, so I'm not that surprised actually.
Well, if you're messy, then this happens. But no, it's the same thing when we talk about Civil 3D. Sometimes the dynamic abilities just stop working and need to restart. So it's a fairly common situation.
But that's the fun part with our job. You never know what to happen.
It is also the fun part of having a live demo. If stuff like this happens.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. Of course I started the wrong one.
Yes. Yes, because right now you're actually running with the Naviate UKI, right? Version?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's the same installation, but depending on which language you want to use, or which library of files you want to use, we have Naviate in different languages, and right now Martin is showing the UKI version of Naviate. So, and how you can see that is that the icon is called Naviate UKI. Um, so we tend to have all the languages installed on our computer, so it's very easy to find the wrong icon and start from. That's why we need to restart it.
So now it's back on
There we go.
track. So if you got a problem with this, the dynamic stops working, then you can just try to restart Naviate, and it should be back on track, hopefully. So we can also see if you can delete label and get rid of this feature line. Yeah, as you can see now, the line deleted, and it should be the same with the point. So and if you want to connect 2 points, if let's say I just create a point here, a lower point on the surface. I choose to get the height from the finished ground again. Hit OK here and place my point over there. And I want to check the elevation or do some edits here and see what slope I get from different other points. I can just use this single again, and then I choose object instead of point. And then I can just pick this point, and I pick object again and pick this point. And then I get those 2 points connected with the slope arrows. And then I can just continue to do the same thing again, connect them to other points. So now I pick this one instead and this one, and I can see the relation between those 2 points. And now if I change height or anything on this point, I can see how the slopes change. And if I want to move or create points continuous, I use this continuous functionality instead. I can do the same thing here. I can choose a point to start from. So if I want to start from this point, just pick that one, and then I can connect to another, or I can pick point, edit the slope if I want to. I pick a positive 1 slope instead, and then just do a continuous line here. And when I finish that one, I can see the point elevation heights. And we also got the opportunity to interpolate between 2 or 3 points here. So if I choose this interpolate function, I can just pick my first point I want to interpolate between and the second point. And then I can pick a third point if I want to. It will interpolate between all those 3. Or I can pick a distance from any of these points that I want to create this interpolation between, or I can pick an elevation that I want this point to hit. So here I got 5.58 and 5.36. So if I pick elevation and I want this point to be created at 5.39, it will find that point and create a new point there, and also add the slope arrows. So it will break the slope arrows and create 2 new slope arrows. And then I can work with this point, same as the other ones. Just move it around and change elevation and so on. So that's pretty much the slope arrow functionality. And now we will look into some other functions here. This one, extrude, really good function to create 3D objects. So I have created some feature lines, just regular feature lines here that I will use. It's a good idea to create them if you're going to create objects. So you have them in a different site, so you got a good track on it. You can show that on the slope arrows as well. If you don't want to show the feature lines, you can use this object on off. Then we got the feature lines here. And if I just want um, to hide them, I can just turn them off. But if I have them turned off by layer, they will also turn off the labels here. But if I want to keep the labels and just turn off the feature lines, I can change here on feature lines to hide by style instead of hide by layer. So if I change to hide by style and turn those feature lines off, we can see that I'll turn off my surface also, so it's easier to see. Then we can see that we only got the labels left on the screen. So I can toggle on and off to show the feature lines or turn off the feature lines. So if you also want to use feature lines that should be visible, you can create another site to easily turn on and off those feature lines. Here's a tip. So I will switch here. So I got two viewports, and we will put one in 3D and one in 2D, so we can see what's happening in 3D as we do our 3D modeling. So here I got some profiles. I just got a 2D polyline that are creating a retaining wall, a T-wall. So we can keep this here. So if I run this function, extrude along path, I pick what line I want to extrude along. So I pick this feature line, and then I can select either a profile that's created from 2D polyline. Very important that it's a closed 2D polyline, or I can also use a block created from a 2D polyline. So if I have just done a quick profile with a 2D polyline in my drawing, I can use select there, and then I pick my profile, and then I choose what point I want to insert this on, and I want to insert in the corner here, just above the chamfer. So no rotation, just hit enter here. And then when I want to look, I can also give it a name, call it steel wall 1. I'll choose what layer I want it to be in. Now I just want it in layer 0. I can also choose rotation, offset, but we'll look into those other functionalities later on. I will just look at the preview now and see how it's created. And here I can see a preview of my retaining wall. I can also choose if I want to flip this, so change side. And I can also do these edits that we're talking about. Rotation, add offset. If I want to offset it from the main line, I can use this command. It will offset it. I just use negative or positive values to choose side that I want to offset it on. And I can also add the elevation here. If I want it to be like 6 centimeters above the ground or above the line, then I can just add the elevation here. And it will offset it from the line. And we can also add property sets when we run this function. If you're using IFC export property sets, you can also add a property set for IFC export. So when I want to create this, I just hit create, and it will create this retaining wall. And if I want to keep running the function for other lines, like if I want to create the same retaining wall for this line, I can hit pick this line, and it will be created. And here we can see also that the line is reversed. So here I need to flip my retaining wall. So you can just add a property set. And we got some fast functions here, like flip solid. So I can just run that function and hit the wall, and it will flip. And if I want to do any edits on this after it's created, I can just run this extrude along path again, and then I can just pick the solid, and I will get this one up. And now I can do edits on this wall. So if I want to add 16 centimeters, I can just add it here and then hit OK. And it will update the wall. Same thing if I change my line, or if I change the profile, I can just do a ugly change here, like something like this, and we choose update solid and just hit solid. We can see that it updates after my new profile. We choose to not have this dynamic, so it won't update if you don't do it yourself. It's also possible to do this extrusion by script. So if you got, like in this case, I got some feature lines that is attached to the surface. I use the feature elevation from surface to get the heights for these feature lines. Use this function, pure Civil function. And then now I will run a script for doing this extrusion instead of picking each line. And this can be good if you're working with a lot of lines that you want to have 3D objects from. The script is kind of easy to use. It's placed in the support folder. You can find it if you're in any Naviate tab, and then use this help drop down, Naviate support files. And it will open the folder. See in here. And then we got this Naviate extrude script. I have just make a copy of this one and call it curbs. And then you can just open it with Notepad. I use Notepad++ because I think it's easier to do these edits with. And here you got kind of clear instruction how to use this. So now I use feature lines that use styles curb top, or the style for this feature line. And the block name that I use for this is KSRV2. And then I can choose if I want to scale it, if I want to flip it. Now I choose YR, and that means that it's going to be flipped. And then what layer I want it to be in when the extrusion is done, and also render material. So I just use this extrude again, and then extrude by script. And it will open the support folder, and you can just pick this script file, like in this case, and extrude script curbs. Then you just click open, and now I can drag. You can drag over everything, because if it's not finding these parameters, it won't create anything. So I can just pick everything, hit enter, and it will create my 3D solids here. And in this case, I have used 3 different blocks. It's one for the curbstone, one for the concrete, and one for the concrete bottom. And as you can see in this scripting file, I also put them in different layers. So I got curb stone for stone, curb concrete for the concrete on the sides, and curb bottom for the bottom. I can also change the conceptual view. So here we can see how it's created the stone, the concrete, and the concrete bottom. So that's a really useful function.
I'm going to interrupt you there. I got a question, or we got a question, if the path can be 3D or just 2D lines. And you showed it there on feature lines, and that could also be a 3D polyline. So you can use anything you like.
Yeah. So let's continue here. Great. That's about extrude function. And if you remember that, I also added some property sets on my retaining walls. And it means that we also got this data on the walls now. So if I want to like do a takeoff or just be able to search for my retaining wall, I can use the Naviate property palette here. And the property set that we use as a default is this NV corridor property set. And then it adds the name. So let's see, search here. So I'll find all the objects that have this NV corridor property set, and then I can filter it down by code or whatever I like to. And also do a sum on the length. So now I know that I got 24.7 meter of retaining wall. For example. So, and we can also use this function, see, 3D measure or extrude objects along line. Use the same line. So now I will create a fence with this line. Yeah, one more thing I want to show about extrude before we leave this function is that you can also create your templates. If you got like blocks or something you use on a regular basis, just pick that one, and here on the side you can see you got a template function. Either if you have done your settings and you know I'm going to use this more times, you can just press this desk and save it as something. And if you want to open a template, you just hit this folder and you'll go to this map and you can like just import anything. So this is kind of useful to if you have a common setup that you use, so you can save it so you don't need to do all the settings here once again. Also with this 3D measure or objects along line, you can also save your templates or import templates. Like if I pick this feature line and I can import a sample template here. Oh, this one. So I got this fence even by segment, for example. Just open this one and I can see that I got all the settings that I need set already. Like frequency, if I got rotation or offset or something like that. I can do a preview on that one. You can see it's straight away. And it's the same principle. You just use this when you have done your settings, choose your block and everything. You can save it and open templates. So, what we will use a different block here. There's a lot of options here, but it's not as hard as it looks, hopefully. So I will just open another block here. And we got some different sample folders here, like 3D blocks that you can import. Some 3D objects, we got GP link or some road lights or trees or anything. And you can also create your own 3D blocks and put it in this folder. So let's see here, I will use this pole to create my fence or railing. So I pick this 1x 0.5 with the pole, and then I just hit the preview to look how it looks. And I can see I want it to be a little bit more in, so I should pick the start point at 0.1 instead. You can see how it moves. And I also want to do an offset on this to move it on the retaining wall. So I pick, let's just try maybe 0.10, see how it looks. And here you can see it moves the wrong direction. Then I can just change the minus to positive, and it will move to the other direction. But this one I will choose an offset 0.05. Right there, 12. I guess 0.06 to get in the middle. So I can also choose if I want to scale anything here. Uh, so, and one new thing that we added, I think it was last year, or maybe in the spring, it was select start and end block. So you can put a different block in the start and end point. So change the frequency there, get them a little bit tighter. So, and you also got the other options. You can rotate the blocks. You can add elevation, precisely as we did with the retaining wall. You can also choose if you want to align them to main path or if you want to just have them flat like this. So if you got a sloped line, you can align them to the line, but then you will also get some rotated or sloped objects. So sometimes you want to do it, sometimes you want to not do that. So just hit OK here, and then it will create those poles. And if I do want to do any edits or something here, I can just run this function again and pick one of these objects. It will come back here. And then I can do my edits if I want to. So that's the first step of creating. And then I can use this extrude along path function and use the same line again. Just see if I can find any block here. Extrude profile, I will use circle. And then I will just scale this 0.1. And I will do an offset on this as well. So I get it in the middle. It's like the same offset as the poles. And this is where you can do, like if you want to have a easy workflow with this, you can just save template for extrusion, save template for those polar, and you can just add them whenever you like. Add elevation 1 meter, I think will be good. And then we pick preview, see where we get it. And we can see how it aligns with these poles. And then we just pick create. We can uncheck this property set. So that's an option how you can create a fence or railing. This was a really ugly one, but I hope you get the idea of how it works. So that's a little bit about 3D modeling. We'll also show this plant data. And we got this block library, same as we got these blocks from, that we can use to just place 3D blocks or anything. So I hit this block library. See here, my computer doesn't want to work with me anymore, it looks like. But now, finally, you can choose, you can create your own folders here as well, or do make shortcuts or have them anywhere you like to. But we got this default 3D blocks library that you can use. And I will just play some 3D tree here. Here you can adjust the rotation, we can adjust the scale, we can project these blocks to a surface if you want to. Okay, check this one and project this to finished ground. And we can also add property set if we want to, and choose what layer name it should be. If I uncheck this, I can either pick a layer or type layer. But now I will just use this folder name as layer. And then I press insert. and start placing my blocks where I want them to. So you can see how they attach to the surface. And we can show this one. So got some trees here. And now, if I want to add a property data on this one, I can use this plant data. And we got some list with trees that I will use. So I just pick one here. Use this one. And then I pick add. Then I choose what block I want to add them on. You can also just use like select similar or anything to have easier selection. Hit enter. And then I can close this one. And if I pick one tree here now, check properties, I can see the property is added. And I can also edit this property, these properties now if I want to. So, and when we got properties, we can use this schedule functions. You can use create schedule table or label if you want to labeling different stuffs here. So I pick this one and then I just pick a tree, enter. Then we use this property set plant data that we added, and we will add a schedule label to this one. It's basically a schedule table, but we use them as a label. So I use this plant data label, and then I choose the text size, choose 2.5 here, and then I pick add table. And then I pick my insertion point, rotation, and where I want to place my leader. And this is how I can create a label for my tree with property sets and the scheduled label table. What do you call them? And I can also create a list of all my trees or basically whatever I want with this table function. You say function, I run again, pick out everything I want to add, in this case trees. And now instead of label, I use table, choose the size here as well, and then I use this function add table instead. We can put it out somewhere here. And then I got a sum of all the trees that I have placed. And this can also be used for other types of takeoff. So this plant data, really useful. And contact us if you want to know more about this function. And here you can also see why you should use feature lines when you're modeling surface. To get back to the slope arrows function, you can see here that the surface isn't really good triangulated because we got a point here and the low point there. So here we need a line between those two. So I can just pick a single, pick this point, go for object again, and pick this point. And now we can see how it breaks the surface. So that was a quick walkthrough to our surface functions, or landscape function, I mean. So you can create both the surface and 3D modeling with this function. So hope you enjoyed it.
Good. Thank you for this. We got a final question that I just answered, but I just want to mention it. We talk a lot about IFC exporting right now, and usually we talk about IFC export to 4.3. The solids that Martin showed, the supporting wall and the railings, those are solids, and the IFC export can export solids, but you need to add a property set so that it actually knows what it's supposed to export, because otherwise a solid will just be a random object. So that's the good thing about creating solids for this and not just having them as lines, because lines don't export with IFC. But if you're using a lot of IFC export and you have questions about it, we know quite a bit about it when it comes to what Civil 3D can do and what Naviate can sort of assist with. So feel free to contact us if you have those kind of questions. Or as Martin said, if you have any other questions regarding these functionalities, then feel free to contact us. We can help you with that. Good. Do you have anything, final words, Martin, do you want to share?
No, not at the moment, but I can show just a quick about the IFC property sets, if I remember how to do that. But you can, here under property sets, we got this import IFC objects property set you can import. So now if I run this extrude function again, see if I can add it to one of my existing retaining walls. We got this. If you remember, it was grayed out before. Now when I have done the import of the property sets, I can check this, and then I got a list with different alternatives here. So here I got IFC wall, retaining wall, so I can hit OK there. Check the other property sets. I believe you have 2 property sets on this one. Hit OK. I can also set a property set here, just for fun. Manual text. Wall. Says that. And now it have also added this EFC export as. So it knows when you do the export of the IFC that this is a retaining wall.
Yep, exactly. And that list that you showed is something that you can change. So it's stored in the drawing. So you can update that and we can add more to it if you want to.
Yeah.
Good. Thanks for showing that.
But not anything else right now. So thanks for joining.
Yeah, thank you. And this will be up on our YouTube, so you can see it afterwards if you want to. Everyone who's here is going to get a link to the recording, so you can see it when it's up there. So thank you for joining, and see you next time.
Yeah. See ya. Have a nice day.